Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Amber Unfiltered. Today we're going to talk about the death of the author. It's a phenomenon that a lot of writers experience. But before we get into that, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, if you want to cash at me at Amber Unfiltered Show, A in Amber is capital, U in Unfiltered is capital, and so is the S in show. Okay, so let's get into it. So, again, like I said earlier, I attended a pop culture poetry workshop that was amazing. It was really, really cool. I learned some new things, met some really cool people, but also we just had like really good discourse about poetry. I'm a nerd for it. I love it. It is one of my favorite mediums. I feel like that's one of my favorite things to write. It just comes so naturally to me, like the beat, just the imagery, and just the feeling that kind of goes with it. I really love it. I've loved it since I was a kid. Actually, even though I said that we're estranged, my dad actually was the one who kind of put me onto it and like helped me write it and form it, and then I kind of just took it off. Kind of created my own like signature. But I was reading a lot of poetry even before he did that. I think one of the first poems he helped me write that I vividly remember is I wrote a poem about Benihana. I don't freaking know why, but we had to write it for like one of my English classes, and my dad like helped me. It was like sizzle sizzle sizzle, chop chop chop, like that alliteration of like the hibachi grill and stuff like that. Because Benihana was like one of my favorite restaurants. I love hibachi places, but they are expensive, so beware. But I remember him writing it, and then I like went back and tweaked it because I was like, Dad, I need help with this, and then I just kind of took it off from there. It's funny, he was really good at poetry, and my birth mom was really good at like fiction and like novels. And ironically, those are the two things that I want to write. So that's kind of funny to me. I feel like sometimes our parents have things that they're passionate about, but they just don't have time to pursue them because they're raising a family, trying to figure themselves out, trying to provide, and things like that. So I feel like sometimes there's someone in the family who kind of comes along and can kind of carry on that gift. And I feel like that's kind of what is happening to me. Let me know if you guys can relate to that. But so there was something, I forgot how we got on the topic. I think we were all reading the pieces that the workshop facilitator wanted us to create. And then someone brought it, I think I brought it up, and I was like, I hate sharing my work. I was like, once I share it, it doesn't belong to me anymore. And I was like, it's the control. I was like, also, I have no, again, control over how people are going to receive it. Will they like it? Will they not? Will they not like me? Will they judge me? Will they view me differently? Because I do talk about some pretty adult themes in my work. I do talk about intimacy. I do talk about, my days prior to my husband. And I had a lot of very interesting romantic relationships. I would say I was toxic. I don't even want to say that my exes or anybody I dealt with was toxic just solely because I think I participated in it. But I think a lot of it was, not to excuse it again, I think a lot of it was like I had daddy issues. I didn't love myself, and I was just trying to like fill a void because he wasn't around because we were kind of on the outs. But I can say that I could have done better, but I think at that time I got what I was getting, and I was attracting it because I was putting it out, if that makes sense. But anyway, so someone was like, "Oh, it's called Death of the Author." And I was like, "What the fuck does that mean?" And they were like, "Yeah, basically a lot of writers don't like publishing or putting out their work because like releasing it, surrendering it, like giving up that control. And again, sometimes again, another thing is like you have no control over how people will interpret your work, and they might assume that whatever you put in the book is what you stand for, and it's like there's a separation. There might be pieces of us in that book, and of course, characters can be inspired by us or events or even people around us, because obviously you're going to put some of yourself in your work, like it's just inevitable because that's where you draw inspiration. But that can be kind of a challenge because it's like, what if they assume you're one thing but you're really something else? And then I think the facilitator, shout out to Bridget, she was saying that Sylvia Plath actually hated publishing her work. I think they said like, she said that someone like stole her work or went behind her back and went and published it like without her consent. But I think she said something about like Sylvia would like sew her stuff together so like no one could have it. I don't remember the exact reason why, but yeah, I thought that was really interesting because I feel like for so long I've been a hoarder of my work. Like I have hundreds of poems, hundreds of things that I've written, and I just refuse to share them, or I share them with a very small circle. And I recently came to the realization, even though people have probably told me this, but it took me realizing this, was that I fear the reaction, but it's like people can't react if you don't put it out. Like it sounds so simple, but it took me so long to get there. Like I was so dreadfully afraid. I was like, what will my family think of me? What will my in-laws think of me? What will my friends think of me? What about my coworkers or anything like that? It was a lot of fear. It was very fear-based and like just self-doubt, and just it was crippling to me. I felt like I was like a fucking piece of origami, like just crushed. Like I don't know how to explain it. But I recently came to this realization, and now I feel comfortable with putting my work out. Like even last night I put some poetry out, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm so nervous." When I hit like upload, I was like cuz it's like it's not mine anymore. Like, and that's the hardest part. Like I'm like, it's my baby. I poured my soul. Poured my blood, sweat and tears. I went to different parts of my mind, different parts of my psyche, my soul. I really traveled to make this body of work. It feels like pushing out a baby, even though I don't have kids and I know childbirth is not the same thing as creativity. It does feel like you're pushing something out. Like I always envision like a book as a baby, like wrapped in a baby blanket. I don't know if that makes sense, but it is such a it is such a personal, it is such a vulnerable experience. For me, writing feels like church. Poetry especially, it feels like I'm connecting to my higher self. It feels like I'm connecting to God. It feels like I'm connecting to the universe and just those who came before me. So it's a very sacred practice. And to share that with people is like so fucking hard. I finally, I feel like ever since I left my job, like, and even maybe a little bit before that, or, you know, right after, I feel like I've become so confident, and I'm just like, there is nothing I can't do. And I'm like, do everything that you want to do. And one of the biggest things I wanted to do is put out a book, and I've just been too scared, just freaking out. I'm like, what if people, that's another thing too. The questions, the inner self tape or the self talk is like, what if people don't buy it? What if I don't make any money? What if they don't like it? Who's gonna read it? Like, you just worry about all these things that are out of your control. Again, it boils down to control. And that's the hardest part, because I am a control freak and I'm trying to work through it, because I think a lot of my childhood was so uncertain, and it was so, decisions were made that really didn't benefit me and harmed me, that I just want to control everything. But I'm realizing like I can't. Like, you just have to relinquish, you have to surrender, and it is so fucking hard. Like, I struggle with it even in my personal life. I feel like Nick is like such a great partner for me and a great husband, because he is not like that. He is the complete opposite. His childhood was very his childhood was good. Like, his childhood was excellent. I feel like maybe excellent's too strong of a word, but it was really good. Like, it was safe. His, you know, parents encouraged him. They loved on him. There was no abuse. There was no, I don't want to say he doesn't have any trauma, because I don't want to speak for him, but his situation was completely different. He was in a very loving household, like very supportive parents. Like, they supported us with anything, especially him. Anything he wants to do, they're like behind him. And same thing for my adopted family, but I didn't experience that. So I just, as a result, want to control everything. I try to think of every worst case scenario, every variable, and that has trickled into my writing. Again, trauma is, it shows up in different areas of your life. I noticed it shows up in like my food, the way I spend money, the way I think. Like, it affects everything, and I saw it affecting my art a lot, because I kept thinking, why can't I put something out? Why do I doubt myself? Why do I talk myself out of it? But it was all connected. And now that I'm out of an environment that doesn't really suppress or harm me, I think I'm really about to flourish. Like, I've said this so many times, but I feel it. I know it's coming. Like, I told Nick the other day, I was like, I'm on the tip of that iceberg. I was like, I can really feel it. Like, I'm really about to go. Like, I can just feel it. I don't know how I know this, but I was like, I haven't even reached my peak yet. Like, it's coming, and I'm so excited for it. But it took me so long to get here. Like, I've never felt this confident in my life, like, ever. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting phrase that I think Trinity was her name in the workshop brought up. And I was like, oh my God, me too. And I was just like, I hate giving up control. And I was like, art is teaching me how to give up control. My writing is teaching me how to give it up. Because even like when I know it's not exactly the same thing, but when I'm turning in assignments for school, when I click that like submit button and like it's final, I'm like, oh my God, what will my professor think? Will they like it? Will it be up to par? Does it follow the rubric, the guidelines, the prompt? Like, I really get into it, and I make sure that I reread the prompt like 50 times before I submit, and reread what I've written and make sure it maps. Like, I read it aloud, like, and make sure everything is cohesive. I edit like crazy. Like, Nick hears me in there freaking talking to myself, because I'm like, I want it to be on point. Like, I told you I don't play about my grades, but it's so scary. Like, you're like, I made this. Is this good enough? Is this sufficient enough? Does this pass the test? Does this meet your criteria or your standard? And that's so hard. The same thing could apply for art. Um, and I've been so scared for so long of other people's opinions, and now I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Like, it is gonna be what it's gonna be, and if you don't like it, you don't have to like it. The right person will, or the right crowd will. So I just kind of wanted to briefly talk about that and, just kind of give my take on that. But let me know if you're creative, even other creatives, musicians, actors, models, whoever. Let me know if you go through the same thing. It probably looks a little bit differently, but the concept is probably still applicable or still very much the same. But anyway, I love you guys and I hope you're having a good day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.